Hello, and how is it going? My name is R-Dog with the Triple G, and I am very pleased to be your host for today's event. How's it going, chat? How's everybody? It's a beautiful day in the Pacific Northwest. So great to be here, be surrounded by fantastic gamers. I'm just going to take a moment to set the stage. This is one event you don't want to miss. With a prize pool of $3,500 US. So many teams have come to conquer the Prime Championship Circuit crown, but it comes down to who is the best, right? Who will join the elite to call themselves the champions of the PCC? Predecessor is more than just a game to so many of us. A lot of us have started from console, started from Paragon 6-7 years ago. Some of us came from Fault, but we're all gathered here because we love competitive gaming. Competitive predecessor, I should say. Today, we are going to witness the most anticipated moment of this season as we close in to Season 3 of this game. But before we get into these games, I'd just like to introduce who will be joining me today. I'll start with Trix. Welcome back. He's one of our top desk analysts who always has all the spicy things to say here in the PCC to help us break down what we're about to see. How are you feeling?
I'm super excited to be here. Super excited to see some great predecessor today. Really excited to see the best of ones. Hopefully, I see some unorthodox strategies. Maybe some cheese coming out. I just want to see some good games today.
Yeah, me too. And of course, we have right next to me, to my right, Joe, yours truly, YouTuber, content creator, pred partner, now a junior QA tester for Omega. Congrats, by the way. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing great. This is looking to be a really spicy weekend because we see a lot of really interesting, strong teams going today. So I'm very excited to get this going.
Yeah, and I'm so thrilled and just so honored to be here. Ladies and gentlemen, these teams are coming in hot and they are hungry. Predecessor fans, you better be loud and proud. So today, just to kind of introduce what will be happening, today's the seeding round for the PCC to determine who will be in the main event. So they are best of ones. Everybody who we will be watching today will be a part of the main event. But so far, we just had No Communication versus Double Vision go against each other. NoCo just won that matchup. Bad Timing versus Almost Baguette just had their matchup with Bad Timing coming out on top. NoCo and Bad Timing will now compete for 7th and 8th seeds, which is what we will be watching next. But just to also go over the rest of the bracket, we've got Rest and Relaxation, who also just won against Pink Ravens. So they move forward to go against Dirty Lobber and the boys. For Fun Gamers and Rogue just had their matchup with Rogue coming out on top to go against Even Worse Timing. So the thing with Dirty Lobber and the boys and Even Worse Timing, as we know, they kind of automatically qualified for the seeding round event because they were first and second place from PCC4. For Fun Gamers and Pink Ravens will be playing 5th and 6th. Losers from D-Lab and Even Worse Timing matchups go for 3rd and 4th, and the winners move forward to the 1st and 2nd seed. But with that being said, going into the draft for NoCo and Bad Timing, Trix, I have a question for you. Who do you think will be, the top picks and bans?
Top picks and bans. So we saw a lot of, last event, we saw a lot of Rampage. We saw a big focus on Gideon and Bellica. So I think that we can expect to see either those those definitely in the first round of picks and bans, especially since this is, I believe, the first event with the new banning system where it's each side gets a ban.
You're right. Yeah.
A couple picks.
Yeah, I didn't mention that, but this time around, with this PCC5, they'll be banning two heroes each team. Joey, how do you feel about that?
I'm actually really liking this second kind of set of bans because myself, I played with Will. We played this new ban system and made the whole draft a lot more dynamic and interesting. Because right now, I'm seeing the shift to Will now. Flex picks are being a lot more valuable right now. So Victor and Bellica, they can be flex in all these different roles, and they're seeing a lot of high prior picks of bans right now. So I'm just very excited to see the bans today because it's gonna be a lot more dynamic than we saw in the past.
Yeah, there's with these flex picks and all of the heroes, they're just so versatile. You can put them wherever. So with Steel, you could put him in support, you can put him in the off lane, or he can be in the jungle, right? But how about you, Trix? How do you feel about the new picks and bans, or sorry, the double ban, I guess?
I personally really like it. I like that, since it kind of splits into first and second half, those flex picks are a big priority in the first half of the draft, because then based on what the other teams is drafting, you can see, okay, where is like the best choice for these characters to go? Whereas in the last kind of ones, the draft felt pretty linear to me. Like a team picks Rampage, the other team's going to pick Decker. Whereas now maybe you put that off. You kind of want to wait to save your key picks to the end, like kind of spring the trap. But if you wait too long, they could get banned out. With only a few characters in certain roles, you run the risk of, kind of the pool getting low and you playing a character that you don't necessarily want to play or that you're uncomfortable on.
Right. And you're kind of like keeping that a secret from the other team. So you don't want to kind of like expose and, show them who will be your actual picks. But of course, I know these teams kind of like plan out their draft beforehand, ideally, but it doesn't always go as planned because of that new draft system that we have. Going back to you, Joey, you said you played for Rogue. So how was that?
No, it was really great because I think it was really good exposure for me personally to see what's going on in these drafts, because it's kind of like inside knowledge on how all these kind of drafts are happening. And that's where the flexible picks are going to be really highly valued, because it's sort of like a mind game when you're doing these drafts. You pick the Victor, he can go in 3 different roles. So the enemy team is trying to figure out where it's going. And then at the same time, you can, like in the second half of the draft, you go pick a pick in a different role and just catch him off guard, right? So it's just like the fact with this second phase of bans, it just makes the whole process a lot more interesting.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So right again, it'll be no communication versus bad timing. I guess let's move on to the draft and let's take a look at the draft for this game. All right, so no-co versus bad timing. We've got bad timing on the left. Sorry about that. We've got some technical difficulties, but it is no-co who is playing for this matchup. Going to you, Trix. Top bans.
Top bans.
Who do you think?
I'm still predicting Rampage. I know some of the teams have said that he's kind of falling out in favor. I don't expect to see, carry bans, carry picks maybe coming out in the first round, but I think Rampage, Belica are still 2 huge priority picks for just about every team.
And
how about you, Joey? Who are the top bans for you, in your opinion?
Yeah, so I think, in my opinion, the top bans are probably going to be the really flexible kits. Belica is probably going to be high prior ban or pick. I know Decker support has also been really strong, even though she's only flexed into that role as well. So it's going to be probably bans focusing on some of the heroes that can be flexed into all these different roles.
And who will be the top picks, though, Trix?
So for me, the kind of star players in both of these are the carries. So I'm expecting probably to see a Revenant or a Twin Blast go pretty early on, kind of put the other carry into the kind of that reactive role. But we see the Crunch and the Belica bands coming out, so the Crunch a little bit surprising for me personally. What about you, Joe?
It's not too surprising because Crunch is solid in the offlane, always has been, but he's also pretty strong in the jungle because with the nerf to like Rampage, kind of getting toned down, Crunch is starting to become a lot more favorable in the jungle, so I'm not too surprised with the ban right here because it takes this really strong offlane and jungle out of the pick. And same thing with Belica, she's pretty strong at the mid lane and support, so just both of them are just flex picks, just getting taken right out of the picture right away.
Yeah, definitely what we said, going back on those flex picks being big priorities. But like you said, the Decker coming out for bad timing, I really like the Decker pick early on. I think that she's personally one of the best supports. She just kind of does everything that you want her to do, and it doesn't really give the other team too much information about what your team comp is going to want to try to accomplish.
And we do see the Rampage and Trim Blast coming in strong. Trim Blast is actually some of the top ADCs at the moment. The only concern is that he's someone that's not great into Revenant, and Revenant is also another ADC that's been doing really good. So I can totally see bad timing about to pick Revenant right here before they go into the second ban phase.
Yeah, that Decker Rampage coming out early is a lot of what we saw in the last event. You know, kind of you want that long range CC. So if one team picks Decker, I feel like the other team always picks Rampage just because they both bring that like hard CC to the table. Twin Blast, like you said, I don't think that his matchup into Revenant is that great. I've also seen a couple of the players saying that he's not that good into squishy characters. So this may make bad timing kind of pivot into a squishier comp without as much of a big front line. But seeing the Gadget Drongo come out, I like the Drongo pick. That's not like the Revenant that we were talking about, but he brings good consistent DPS to help burn down the Rampage. And Gadget, just a solid overall pick, you know, flexible into that off lane and that mid lane. So just like you said, big emphasis on the flex picks early on in the draft.
Yeah, I really
do like the Drongo
appreciate it.
pick.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Joey.
I do like the Django pick because the big thing about Revenant's weakness is he's actually really bad into very tanky team comp. You see the Rampage pick right here. They could honestly just go for steal if they really want to, and we do see the steal. So if Revenant was picked right here, who would have been struggling against this Rampage steal because those are really beefy boys. So it kind of makes the Revenant a lot more limited in these team fights. So it seems like No Communication is going for a very strong front to back kind of gameplay with the Rampage and steal, just charging in and disrupting the back lines.
Yeah, and we are actually about to see, so this is where the second ban comes in. Both teams have picked 3 characters. Now the second ban comes in. Who are we expecting to see in this second ban based on the teams? Okay, all right.
We do see the Shinbi and FaZe actually coming in.
That's very interesting. Yeah, like seeing the Shinbi and the FaZe bands come out. I mean, maybe the FaZe ban from Noko is here to kind of, because she offers a lot of survivability and safety to your AD carry, right? And the Rampage Steel are both going to be diving that backline. The Shinbi ban is very interesting because Noko's team, I feel like, kind of wants to team fight, and they have a pretty strong team fight. I don't feel like the Shinbi kind of fits in to the comp that Noko is drafting. Maybe bad timing is worried that with the strong front line of Rampage Steel, just a Twin Blast and a support is going to be able to kind of front to back maybe with like a 4v1 kind of situation and just have the Shinbi split pushing the whole time. It's very interesting.
Yeah, this is kind of weird because like that Steel could also go offlane, and Shinbi's one of the best counters to that. She can like literally just keep running down her lane, and Steel has to stay, but he's just not really great in defending the lane. Same thing with FaZe. Like FaZe is actually one of the best supports for Trim Blast, but the home team banned the FaZe, which is quite interesting because like Deco's still on the table. Like I mean, Deco is gonna probably go support by those events. We don't see Deco mid as much, so not too sure about why No Communication wants to ban the FaZe out when I think the Deco support is already kind of locked in for bad timing. And we do see the Richter being paid for new communication. So yeah, they're going for the very beefy kind of front line with the Rampage Steel Richter. So it's going to be interesting to see how these team fights go, because that means like all the damage is going to really come from the Twin Blast and the mid laner pick right here. So if they can't keep the Twin Blast and mid lane space to be able to do the DPS, it's going to be like one of those team fights where they're not going to do enough damage to secure kills and objectives.
Yeah, that is a very, very CC heavy and tanky team comp coming out from No Communication. If you get hit by any form of CC, if you get hit by Rampage Rock, you're getting Riplash, you're getting Steel Stunned, you are going to get blown up. If you get hit by Riplash, to begin with, you're getting hit by Steel Stun, Rampage Rock, you are going to get blown up, and it will be so hard to get to that Twin Blast for bad timing, having to walk through those just like 3 beefy characters of Rampage Steel Richter. But Chimera coming out and Sevarog as the 5th pick for bad timing, that's a very interesting to me, because Sevarog kind of, he's a huge frontline. I like what he offers, but it just, you give up a lot of pressure in the laning phase. And I think that maybe Noko could probably force some early team fights with this big CC heavy tank comp, probably get a couple early Fangtooth, and then it's kind of hard for bad timing to really recover unless that Chimera can, you know, kind of cheese some stuff out in the jungle, get ahead early.
Mm-hmm. And we do see the mid lane being the Gideon. That's kind of like probably the best mage you can go with this Tinking Tame comp because you essentially just want a team fight, team fight, team fight. So the kind of best mage to go along that is the Gideon. So no communication seems like they have a very solid and very obvious strat in that, as they want to take all the team fights in the role. So I would like the bad timing go for the more split pushing strategy because if they got the Shimby, for example, they can just really split apart the team because I think in the 5v5, it's going to be kind of awkward for bad timing to kind of fight around this new team comp against known comps, but it's going to be very interesting to see how the early game plays out because, yeah, that said, Vog, it's not going to have a lot of pressure early. He needs that time to scale up to be an asset in those team fights.
Yeah, I really like the Gideon pick too here for Noko because it overloads the Decker. Like, you have to save the Decker stun for the Gideon ult, but also Decker has to peel for the Drongo. Decker has to try to help, keep her carry alive. And when you're split between those offensive and those defensive responsibilities, it puts a lot of pressure on the players to make the correct decision every single time because using your stun too early or too late in a team fight is going to be absolutely catastrophic for bad timing.
Yeah, both of these teams are solid and absolutely powerful, especially if you come across them in your games. I mean, bad timing. They have Survivor playing in their game or in their team, and then no communication. They have Cold in their team. But looking at this draft alone, Trix, who do you think has the better draft here?
I really like no communications draft. It very much kind of hinges on Twin Blast staying alive, but there's so much CC, there's so much pick potential on the team. And I just feel like the team fights for them are a lot more straightforward. Whereas with bad timing, they have to play around that Chimera, kind of going in, being smart with his engages. Decker, like I mentioned, has the responsibility of not only stunning the Gideon out of his ult, but also trying to keep the Drongo alive. I think that a lot more things can go wrong for bad timing than no communication. So I'm giving my pick to Noko.
And what about you, Joey? Who do you think has the better draft here?
I do agree. I think No-Go has a better draft. But really depends on how bad timing plays the team comp. Because Gadget is really good in disrupting all these taking frontliners. Drongo is very good at self-peeling and just doing a lot of sustained damage to No-Go. So I think the biggest thing to look out for bad timing is how the Gadget and Drongo is performing. Because I think if they both play the characters very optimally well, I think they can play around this very tanky team comp for No-Go, but I think No-Go has an easier time executing their strategy over bad timing at the moment.
All right, welcome back to us from the draft screen. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this matchup. Like you both kind of favored the Noko draft there, and I do appreciate seeing those beefy boys. You got the Rampage, you've got the Steel, you've got the Richter, and you're protecting your TB or your Twin Blast and the Gideon. And we know Gideon is also a little bit more difficult to gank in the mid lane, right? Because he can just portal out. But what are the pros for bad timing's draft?
I think they have a lot of jungle pressure with the Chimera. He's able to kind of do some cheesy stuff pretty early. He pumps out a good amount of damage. I like the Gadget pick. Like Joe mentioned, the ability for Gadget to kind of separate the front and the back lines with a well-placed Tesla Dome really does put a lot of emphasis on Noko's. They have to get CC, they have to go in, they have to be decisive in their engages. Whereas if they split up at all, Rampage and Steel like to dive pretty far forward. Gadget drops a Tesla Dome, separates the front line from the back line, and now that game plan that is pretty easy to execute has been disrupted. And then that's when I think that bad timing's team comp is really going to shine.
Yeah, and Joey, any other last remarks from that last draft that you want to mention?
Yeah, I think for no communications, it's gonna really hinge on the engagements from the front line, especially Richter. I think if Richter can get some really nice hooks to initiate fights, I think that's the easiest way for them to execute the strategy. I think if the Steel Rampage try to force a dive, and then like Trick said, the Gadget can just pop an ultimate and separate the backline, it can make things awkward, right? So I think Noko can't force the dive. They have to play a little bit slow, get that really good pick that's gonna really just be able to execute and roll over in these team fights.
All right, 7th and 8th seed. As Shank from Mulan has said, let's get down to business. The Rendis and Man of Class.
You're muted, bud.
Thank you so much, R-Dog, and of course the rest of the desk. Yeah, we're here, of course, with game number 1, and it wouldn't be the PCC if we had a little bit of me muting myself. But it is going to be a cool matchup. We've got the beef roast of Noko versus the vegetable medley of bad timing coming on this, and they're in this. We had the desk talk about it a little bit, but this is going to be a fun one.
That is going to be a great game. I'm glad to be back. I know we've had a few delays, but we are here. We are starting number 5. The first game, just to kind of read a few things, it's a seeding game. 7/8 seed, it seems like kind of low, but that does become really important really rapidly. I do want to double check with production while we kind of talk. I believe the second round of phases was reversed because it did look kind of weird that a phase ban for the team that didn't have support had gone off. So just if we can check that, that'd be cool. If not, all good. But yeah, I am super glad to be here. I think it's be really, really fun. I think the drafts are really intriguing and kind of do different things. I think the desk really hit on the nail on the head quite well, that we have this kind of dive beef comp versus a disengaged comp. And depending on how you play that out, it can get really bad for one side really fast, or it can be a little bit more intriguing and we can kind of play off of each other.
Yeah, exactly. That's that is what we're going to be looking at. Sorry, we're just confirming indeed if the bans were flipped. They were indeed flipped. So we had that phase ban coming out from bad timing, and then indeed it should be banned from Noko. But yeah, I mean, going into this game, we are going to see it. This is going to be frontline Fiesta versus, well, they're trying to get around the Beefy Boys. And with these, I mean, they've definitely played something like this before. They're not going to be unfamiliar with this matchup. That's, of course, the pedigree of players that we have in this tournament.
Right.
But just because you know how to do it doesn't mean it always works out. And I think a lot of this will definitely come down to the early laning phase. Like, as soon as we get to team fights, it's going to be so much harder to get on top of those squishy characters, as few as they are on the side of Noko. So bad timing has to put some more pressure up in that laning phase and not fall behind early.
Yeah, I agree. I also think bad timing has a bit more of a scaling comp here. Noko, while it doesn't, I don't think it's like an early game by any means. The disengage gets better and better and better, and the anti-take gets better and better and better the later we go. And that just kind of, I'm going to dive onto a Drongo at 27 minutes and just kind of pray that he's not 10 kills and 4 items and just get one shot as really any of these tanks. Start to get a little bit more worrisome as we go on. But I do agree with you. I think the laning phase is extremely important to really both teams. Bad timing because they want to get on that front foot, and Noko because that's really where a lot of their pressure and their kills are going to come from.
Yeah, so far we are going to see a potential invade. Not both teams going to the opposite side, though. We're going to get a little bit of a skirmish here in the jungle on the ADC side, on the dual lane side. Actually, a good rock straight up the Crazy Fool. Does have to blink out, but does get away with that Decker. So hard to catch. Like, that's not one of the main things that's so great about that hero. Just the fact you cannot kill her if they want to get out.
Right, but that was a major pick. I mean, this is going to swing the majority of the first few levels for the side of Noko. They already have this aggressive comp with the Richter. They're looking for kills. It's a kill lane in reality, whereas a Drongo is just kind of looking to farm it up, and that's going to force a recall at less than 1 minute in the game. I'm kind of looking at the same thing here in the mid lane as well, and an immense amount of pressure coming out. Doesn't have to be a kill. Doesn't even have to be a flash. I mean, just that first few waves going the side of Noko can turn into a kill in a few moments.
I do like that the pressure that Finesse 2 is putting up instantly onto B-More here is just making sure that you're not losing out on another lane while your ADC is being pressured. The good thing about Survivor, though, is because their support was missing, the XP they were getting wasn't shared for a little bit, so they are at least not going to fall too far behind between the lock.
Right, they actually stabilize a little bit better than I thought. What I'm now interested is see if Noko wants to pull their jungler, because they are going to have this experience lead, as you just mentioned. They're going to have, I believe, a blink lead. They're going to hook move.
Nice Whiplash coming in, Survivor having to blink out, and now they're going to go after Crazy Fool. You know, it's going to be tricky to get that Decker. They're not even going to commit that hard. Just want to push in the lane and get them under their tower, and then there will be so much room to work with.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just mentioning. Now the impetus is even more on Noko's jungler, because now you have both Blinks down in the duo lane, with both Blinks up for your duo, with a Richter hook. I mean, that just screams, give me a gank. Now, on the flip side, that also means that BT's jungler, BT's mid laner, and their duo lane are kind of aware of this. They need to be ready for the fact that a lot of pressure is going to be coming this way. The first few kills are going to be coming in the duo lane, so you probably have to adjust what you were thinking just a few moments ago. Where's the Chimera? He's in solo lane. We'll see how it goes.
I love the way that Mav is playing this as well, just constantly rolling around the lanes, throwing rocks at everybody, hitting all the rocks as well. Just making sure that everyone's always on their toes, never really sure where the rampage is until you start warding properly. And yeah, I mean, what a better way to play jungle, right? Just keep them guessing.
Oh, exactly. And that's why I'm not super happy that Nitro just showed himself in solo lane. Now he just has said, hey, my duo is, I'm not protecting them. I'm looking at solo. He's looking for a fight as well. You're right. I'm kind of surprised that Noko's jungler didn't look a little bit more aggressively when he saw Nitro, but here's going to be a fight.
Yeah, they're going to pressure it. I mean, of course, they know the rampage is there. They did see each other.
Exactly.
So there's a very good chance that they're like, we're not going to commit too hard, because then we're just going to get backstabbed, or at least get a rock in our backs by the rampage. On duo lane, there is a little bit more going on. Very low HP Richter here. Scott is going to go back to base. Those D-locked. He's going to make sure they reset. They have the wave pushed in all the time in the world. There's Nitro back on the steal. Will try and get some more HP off the board, and will definitely mess with the XP gain that they're trying to get here on the off lane. Luckily, though, with a couple of abilities, Steel will just clear that wave right up.
Yeah, he helps push Mr. Goop push his lane out, gives him a nice early back, and his duo lane did kind of stabilize there, we saw, and I'm actually starting to kind of think that Noko maybe should have pushed the envelope a little bit more. You know, I'm not super happy about sitting in the solo lane, but if your duo lane is going to stabilize on their own, then I mean, no harm, no foul.
Very much the case. Mid lane's just clashing back and forth. Scott is actually leaving the lane a little bit towards this ADC, making sure that they get some more farm out of it, a little more lane XP. And Mav once again just harassing on the mid lane. Finesse not catching a break whatsoever. These rotations have been super active from the rampage.
Here is the gank, I hope, in the duo lane, but Mabs is just trolling me. Never mind. I'm sorry. I do like Scott kind of looking for roams here. I think it's really important, especially with a major engaged support like this. You know, if you're not going to be going the gauge in the duo lane, let's say that your Blink's down, you don't feel like you can just kind of trade Blinks. Look to that mid lane. Look to go with your jungler. I think that duo of the jungler support or the mid support, kind of how depending on how the game rolls out, is extremely important in the early game. Probably more important than just the jungler on himself or by himself, rather. So I would like to see Richter either push it here for the gank or start roaming and looking to affect the rest of the map, because he already has a lead in this duo lane, no Blinks. They don't really have to go too harder.
And once again, just this random boulder flying into the lane. Didn't hit anybody, but that Whiplash sure did. Survivor doesn't have the ult yet, cannot get away from this. Will this be the first blood? It does look like it. I think it's gonna be courtesy of Scott, but I think maybe D-Log got the last hit in. Just the security of the Richter being around. Was it Deet Scott that got the last hit?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you can take it every now and then. They both get the XP for it regardless.
Yeah, and, you know, it's definitely not ideal, but there's a wave crashing. It's a full stack wave. There's gold buff up, so there's going to be a wave plus of experience and gold not going to BT's jungle or Daisy. We got to fight here though.
We do. Another rock hitting. Mav is absolutely on the case today. We're not going to chase that down. Mana not quite high enough to do it, but they don't need to. Mav will just clean that kill right up, and that's a 2-0 lead for Noko at the moment. They are definitely capitalizing on that first wave play pressure, and Mav so instrumental to pretty much all of it.
Nitro has a level lead here. Let's see if he wants to get a return kill.
I try. I mean, how are you going to get up on top of BMOR, you know?
It's good buffering from BMR, actually. Really well played. I mean, there's about a half of a frame, maybe 2 frames, that the E auto R combo from the Chimera, you can actually get out of it if you can kind of buffer like a movement ability specifically like the E. I'm not sure of too many other heroes other than a Gideon could really do that in that situation. Maybe like Drongo ult or something like that. But he played it really, really well. I don't think the ult went on cooldown though. So that means that Nitro's going to have a regank opportunity here soon.
Yeah, so look at the nice matchup between the Sevarog and the Steel, always going back and forth in the early game. Guru just gonna Wraith form right away out of that one, and it will be a lane cleanup for the Steel. They are, yeah, they're just pretty much going back and forth trading out. I don't think you want to go in on this if you're Guru, but if you get a good hammer smash into your own tower, you might just win that 1v1.
Yeah, no, I mean, really, I'm kind of worried about the fight here with no minions. But back to the solo point, I think it's fine to just keep trading it out. You know, that's just kind of the wet noodle lane. I'm surprised that Nitro looked at it so hard because they're just going to be kind of smacking each other. Now that we're cresting this 8.5 minute part, I kind of want to come back to what we were talking about earlier about what these teams wanted to do at what points. I think Noko is really pushing the envelope here, has a really good starting game. Probably a kill here again with Mav.
Yeah, very much my value of what the Demo are going to do other than just clean this right up. There's nothing that you can do if you're Finesse. Got back to their tower just in time. That's actually Nitro showing up with the ult this time. There is a blink available, but couldn't get the buttons off in time. That is a death on the mid laner, Gideon. Mav tried to come in to help out a little bit. So does Diecry hate Noko, but won't be able to make it in time, and now they're probably just going to run for the hills unless they can try and find a kill. They are here with a bunch of units. Even the carry is here. This could be a lot of damage coming out on a unit if they're able to isolate it. It does seem that bad timing actually is pretty good timing on this part, just rotating out as a unit.
Yeah, no, that was really well played by BT. So Nitro, it's kind of funny. Noko's Miller kind of screwed himself in a way there, where he buffered the ult, giving Nitro on the Chimera another ult opportunity, but he didn't reset. So Noko's mid laner sitting at like kind of 25-30% health. Forces a fight there, gets a cleanup kill on the side of BT, kind of stabilizing here. And then actually also, as you mentioned, drew the entire duo side of Noko to mid lane, which is allowing Survivor and BT's duo to get this wave pushed in, to get a gold buff, and one little kind of gank, or really two ganks that kind of eventually turned into a kill in the mid lane has really stabilized the map all of a sudden for BT, including a Prime Mini.
I do really like this mini Prime play coming out of bad timing. I think that was the biggest thing about that pressure on the mid lane from like the entirety of Noko, just making sure that the rotation backwards, like back towards the safety of their towers, was happening on the side of bad timing. Otherwise, you're going to see, you know, either a mini Prime play or even a Fangtooth play coming in very early on, and this way they sort of, you know, stop that bleeding from happening. They'll still have to be very wary of this jungler with the mini Prime, but they don't have to be wary of Decker anytime soon. Got caught out, and that means they're going into the pit. They're gonna try and take this Fangtooth, and they'll probably be pretty sure to take it. I mean, 4 of them here. No reason for anyone else to challenge this on the side of bad timing, and that will be an objective trade.
Yeah, we didn't see the beginning of that. It probably looked like a scouting mission, get some wards down, kind of see if Noko is looking for Fangtooth. We might have a kill here.
Might have another one. Oh, but Finesse comes in. Oh, that might actually be a really bad position to be in for the Steel. They almost got the elimination, but not quite. And now you're on a sliver of HP versus 2 heroes on the other side. Are you going to get out of this? The answer is probably a resounding no. With that gadget turret coming in, the drone will be exploding your head like that. And Mr. Guru has the hands together. He's touching the fingertips. He's like, I'll according to plan this time around.
I hate those freaking head the pinata things, man. Just, you know, you're dead and you're just sitting there just waiting it out. Good return though from the side of BT. That a little bit of mistake from their support giving over the Fangtooth. The thing is, the Fangtooth is probably already gone. I mean, you know, you've gone the Gank in mid, you've gone for the Prime Mini. It's okay to give over the Fangtooth at this point because you've already stabled your duo lane. Like, we're not really worried about it. Not super necessary. We'll see a fight again in the mid lane.
Good use of the black hole, clearing the wave as well as putting a threat onto Nitro, who is running around with that mini Prime buff. So you really want to make sure that they are not going to get to just wail on that tower, and that mid tower is getting super low, so that could have been the elimination. And then they're just going to wail on you as a Gideon. So good heads up play. Scott and D-Lock still in that 2v2 here on the duo lane, but they are a little bit behind in XP as the damage comes out. Good ultimate from Scott, just skewering them all the way into a CC position. D-Lock cannot quite do the damage to actually make them back off, but at least this wave will be able to be cleared. Another good Riplash comes in, and there's Nitro from the back, gets one. Might go for D-Lock as well, but probably has to back off before because of the tower damage. Crazy Fool and Survivor will also go for D-Lock, but it looks like the Twin Blast is going to be the one that gets away alive out of this. We got to get a Gideon rotation as well.
Yeah, little sus on Scott's engagement there. Both blinks up on the side of BT's duo. He just throws out a random hook, not even under tower. Wouldn't have really done a whole lot. That's an instant engage from the Decker, who locks him in the cage. The fight goes on. Nitro already kind of probably had the call that they were looking to dive anyway. Scott does kind of save it there a little bit with his ultimate and kind of slows down, but I mean, he was dead no matter what. It's just whether he could have gotten that trade kill, and unfortunately didn't come out. And BT really starting to slow the pace of the game, recognize their scaling potential, and just allowing things to kind of go more and more in their favor. And I mean, they picked up the mid lane tier 1, but the most important turret in the entire game during that duo, because it forced Gideon to rotate to the duo lane.
Yeah, it was the tower was so low it was gonna fall anyways, so like that extra 2 minutes that it might have been up would have been okay, but it was definitely it's definitely still a loss that that tower is gone, especially if you see like the HP difference in the towers. There's definitely more pressure on the objectives of Noko at the moment, but at least the big thing they've got going for them is that they're not like drenching in XP deficit. They are definitely able to keep up in terms of farm pace. And when it comes to those sort of things, they are not wasting resources or time.
Right, D-Lock at about 110 or so. Well, actually, it's kind of my UI's kind of screwing with me. But maybe 110 CS at 14 minutes. Pretty good clip there. He's only missed maybe a couple of waves, and he's been forced out on 2 or 3 waves and killed one. So that's probably where that deficit is coming up. Basically, he's at 10 CS a minute outside of that kind of fighting is going on. I think he's looking quite all right, despite, maybe that kind of mess up. He has Mav here as well. Crazy Pool and Survivor do both have their blinks, so we'll see how it goes. B-More's also here. This might be a big fight.
No, they want to go for it, but they can't hit the rock or the Riplash in time, and it does. Crazy Pool and Survivor are just ready for this. They are aware this is happening, but this tower has to be taken now. They want to have a lead in the lane. Meanwhile, the split push on mid, that Chimera is just taking down the tier 2. No ifs and buts about it. Such a chunk of health out of that one. They will find the objective on the dual lane, but they might lose a steal for it. And can you get out in time? It doesn't. Ooh, they barely get away. The tick damage is enough. There's a gadget for you. That's how she works. I mean, Nitro eventually gets the kill on that, but just too much range on those 2 characters to actually get away from it.
Yeah, it's a major overload on the duo lane from Noko. They really want to push that tower down, but as we had just mentioned just a moment or two before, the mid lane tier 1 for Noko is missing, allowing a huge push on the solo lane and the mid lane from bad timing, kind of really understanding how the map is playing. They lose nothing on the side of the duo outside of a turret that was probably going to die here pretty soon. They get a kill. They almost get a turret. They get 2 waves to crash from the solo. Really, really good macro coming out of BT, and I think they're coming out ahead, honestly, just because Noko is not really like seeing bad timings plays just yet.
It's the hard part about Noko's lineup. You have so much beef, but you don't have that much brawn. Right. But you need to be able to do damage after you CC them. So that means they always have to group up a little bit more. That split push is probably their biggest weakness. And now that we're going into the Fangtooth, this is where a team fight can take place. This is where the true power of Noko should be coming out. But BT, they're just wailing on the Fangtooth, and the Steel is split pushing instead. They're not going to challenge this. This is not going to be a team fight.
No, I think that's an okay decision from Noko. Their Steel is not nearly going to be in the fight. It's going to be a 4v5 no matter what. It's probably not even worth it. You're only kind of just equalizing the Fangtooth at this point, but you can get a tier 1, get closer to equalizing your turrets. I think actually turret numerically will be equalized at this point, although maybe not like the most important ones. Now, of course, Die Cry Hate has to get out. We'll see how that works. But I think that's an okay trade, and I think that's actually a bit more what I want Noko to be doing, because as we had just mentioned, and you had just mentioned as well, they're a meatball. You know, they have this struggle of, if we're not 5 together, what are we doing? Well, you got to be aware of what BT is doing at the same time. I think they're starting to get aware of it, and here might be your fight they're looking for.
This definitely might be it. A little bit of a late arrival is going to be for the Richter, but they do know what's happening. Finesse is on the outside of the pit, could be caught up on their own, but they know they're here. They're aware of it. The gates come out, and that is a problem if you are on the side of Noko. Actually, no. They're able to pull it off. A big black hole on top of everybody. 2 already downed on the side of Noko. The damage there doesn't seem to be. 3 on the ground. That is Richter also losing their life. Maybe you will get out if you're D-locked, but the answer is a big fat no, an even bigger fatter no than your composition is fat. But that is going to be Noko losing everybody, losing the mini prime, and the mid lane is going to get absolutely dumpsters.
Wow, probably as good of a fight as Noko could have gotten. However, I mean, major shout-outs to Crazy Fool, who basically just won the fight single-handedly. His box kept Mav out of the fight. He could not go in onto the Prime, which allowed BT to set up whatever team fight they wanted. Mr. Guru just kind of all-ins in a very small area. He's their major front line. He pulls so much attention to him. And the dual lane doesn't even get caught in the Gideon R. Mr. Guru is able to pull so much attention to him that Survivor TV is just sitting there free-firing the entire time. He cleans it up, and Noko just doesn't have any damage outside of Gideon R and maybe just kind of Twin Blast picking up kills in a team fight like that. Like, their goal is to dogpile on, ideally, the ADC or the mid laner, one-shot them, and then just kind of see how the fight plays out from there. If the ADC is not even taking damage, it's going to go bad really, really fast, and a clean ace at 18 minutes, that's a death knell unless Noko can really pull it together here.
That's the word right there, the cleanliness of the ace. That is the big problem here. If you get like 1 or 2 counter picks, you get some gold, you get some XP, you keep things rolling a little bit. But exactly. Now you just exacerbate the gap that's between. You talk about almost 100 CS difference between the teams. You're talking logically about a big XP gap, about a gold gap. You can see the completed items that are coming up. Like, everything is coming up BT at the moment. And it couldn't be going worse for Noko if you try. They got a couple of kills on the board, but barely any objectives. They got 1 Fangtooth. All the primes and the Fangtooth, all of that, have been going to bad timing.
Yeah, losing that mid-tier 2 and the inhibitor, pretty major pressure point. However, what I do want to see from Noko, which is very possible with their team comp, is looking for picks, looking for Mr. Guru, maybe getting a little too out of position, looking for the duo lane, which is actually a fight in the duo lane right now, or kind of like a scuffle. We say, oh no, it is a fight. Richter goes down. Well, there goes the lack of my hope for pick comps, but I think picks are very, very possible here for Noko still. However, the further we get and the more we crash these waves, look at these tier 2s, look at these inhibs, then it just turns into my favorite. I'm a jungler. I've been playing jungle for over 10 years. My favorite time and my least favorite time is when my team is in the lead and I get just to eat the enemy's jungle, and the worst time is when you're the jungler getting eaten. But they're kind of getting closer. There's a fight here on this turret.
To actually get the elimination onto the Chimera, will lose D-Lock as a result, but there is a lot of damage coming out here. They may be able to get the pick on the Crazy Fool. Gotta be careful about it though, because Survivor is doing chunks of damage on the Rampage here. Mav has to back off. Is playing a really good game and is able to keep themselves alive here, but unfortunately does not have what it takes to take out a bit more. And then they catch it from the side. The dirty drone from down under. That's not what you want to see if you are Noko at the moment. That timing, just getting kill after kill.
Mr. Guru does go down in the extended trade, so it's a 2 for 2, but both 2 towers, that's a lot of 2s. Did you know that a couple is 2?
It is 2.
And and it's a couple means 2 and a few means 3, which can be kind of confusing at times. Sometimes people say they want a couple of things and they actually mean they want a few or many, but a couple people went down on both teams and a couple turrets went down, and it's going to be probably a reset here, and probably a comfortable reset after this Fangtooth. I don't think Noko can really go for this, but it might be do or die.
It might be that they just have to, you know, like, because you were talking about like the solo pickoffs around the map, but like who's really gonna be someone they can kill before they either get away or the rest of the team comes in, and then you start questioning what they even do in the first place. So the answer is not a lot of your Scott Honey, because that is just a Chimera rampaging in your face. Die Cry Hate does come in on the steal with the Bull Rush, will not be able to really stop anyone from getting the kill onto Scott, but did at least stop them from engaging straight away. Unfortunately, the engage is still coming through. That's 4 on the ground. Be-More, you're Ari Gideon, you have a lot of mobility, but if it's 5v1, the mobility in the world cannot save you. This looks like Noko out of it. BT going for the core. I think we're locking in our 7th seed right here, because no one's going to be back. That really matters for another 20 seconds.
Yeah, pretty impactful there. I mean, we have a 5-level deficit between the jungler and the support of Noko. That even if it's not a Chimera that's fed, that's just going to be a kind of a lost support at the beginning of the team fight. It was a major ultimate there from Nitro to kind of set up the rest of the fight. But at that point, I mean, we're talking 7,000 gold deficit plus an extra Fang Tooth, which adds, another 700 plus gold deficit. You just start kind of smacking them with your wallets at that point. And if the game didn't end there, it probably, without disaster, would have ended in the next 2 to 3 minutes.
Yeah, that was not a game that looked very salvageable after that 5K, the clean ace that came through from bad timing. But Nerendis, I mean, if you look at both these teams, we're going to be seeing him in the main event in in like 3 weeks. There is a lot to work on for both of them. Like there's things they can figure out, things they can do on. We're going to get a new hero that's going to be available as well. Probably maybe a patch or 2 coming through. There is a lot of excitement still coming out of both of these, and just because they're the 7th and 8th seed doesn't mean they couldn't go all the way.
No, absolutely. And like I said, this is still an important game. Like you need to be, or you want to be rather, in that higher seed. It doesn't necessarily end your tournament by any means, but it changes who you're going to be fighting. It changes how you're going to be drafting. And I mean, even on that, I don't think Noko's draft was bad by any means. I think it came down to just a little bit of communication, a little bit of playing in kind of a strange ways, maybe. In the first few levels, they had this massive lead in duo and didn't really push it. Nitro kind of accidentally being in the right place many times. I was saying, I was kind of weirded out by him being in solo lane, but it ended up being the right over and over again. It gave him an early prime, and then as you mentioned, that ace, the game was probably in bad timing's lead, but they were in the lead. That ace was just monstrous. I mean, it was a clean ace plus a Fang Tooth plus prime, and there's not a lot of coming back from that unless we saw the picks that we were hoping for. And BT, very intelligent. This is actually one thing that I really like, is that we see this a lot where we see a team ace, we see him in a 7K lead, etc. We can have several towers and things like that. They don't know how to close it out. And that's a major issue that I have with a lot of teams, even really high competitive teams in a lot of games, not even just predecessor, that they have this lead and they don't know how to finish the game. BT showed an extremely important skill that's sometimes hard to show, that when you have a lead, you need to close it out. You need to close it efficiently, rapidly, and make it look easy.
Yeah, they very much closed it out, and we're definitely not closing on the broadcast just yet. We have plenty more games to come, 5 to be exact. So definitely don't go anywhere. I mean, you can go grab some water. In a couple of minutes, we'll be back. The desk will be breaking it down. So see you then.